Good
Mr.
morning, Mr.
Adu.
Can you hear me,
Can you
please?
hear me, please?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, good morning. Who's saying? Okay, I can hear you. Good morning.
Yeah, I think
Who's saying? Okay, I can hear you.
okay, thank you very much. We are waiting our mentees to join the call.
Okay, that's fine. My audio it's clear. I think I'm having a delay there. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I'm having a
yeah,
delay
it's
there.
clear. Yeah, it's clear. Saying Mahadi, and I'll be our moderator for today's session. Kindly indicate if you can hear me clearly. Can you all hear me? Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Abdullahi Haruna. We are so happy to have you here. He's one of our mentors for today. And as our mentors and our mentees join the call, I will quite quickly do an introduction. I'm Hussein Mahadi by name, and I'll be our moderator for today's session on the first week of JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program on the energy industry. And today's topic is the fossil fuel industry with us, Mr. Abdullahi Haruna, Mr. Alexander Akolu, Olatunde, and Mr. Etula Adu. Thank you very much for joining us, and good morning to everybody once more. So quickly, I will be making a few announcements and also telling us what the Gypsy Mentorship and Internship Program is all about. I hope you can all see my screen. Gypsy Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals in Africa. Gypsy Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals in Africa. Advice, training, network. Mentees are afforded the opportunities to access discussion forums and industry updates, network and resources material from experienced mentors, discussion forums and industry updates and resources material from experienced mentors. The program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Africa and around the world. To encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Africa and around the world. You can watch our videos by searching for Gypsy. You can watch our videos by searching for Gypsy some of the objectives of the program are to provide easy access to quality professional guidance, training and resource in Africa, experience and less experience to transform mentees into mentors and to facilitate further mentorship forums in Africa and scholarships and job placement for the mentees to transform mentees mentors and to facilitate further mentorship forums and scholarship and job placement for the mentees. Okay, I can see the network is not stable. Okay. I'm trying to reach out to my network. Okay, now. I can see the network is not stable. Okay. I'm trying to reach out to my network now. Network. Network.
Hello, Hussein. Hello, Hussein. Can you share the screen while I read it? Can you share the screen while I read it?
Okay, I'm back. Please, can you hear me? Please, can you hear me? Please, can you
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. There's a 30 minutes one-on-one session for our mentees. So you can take advantage of this opportunity. Register with the link on the screen. Register with the link on the screen. bit.ly/JIIPCC. So I'll be reading out our mentors profile for today, and I'm starting with profile for today. Mr. Abdullahi Haruna. Abdullahi Haruna is an engineer with experience of working across the Nigerian power sector value chain, generation, transmission, and distribution. He is also a co-founder of Finance Foundation and environmental non-profit, and that engages communities about the effects of climate change and how to mitigate those effects by planting and nurturing trees. He's currently an electrical engineer with
Sorry, there's an echo going on. So maybe you can reduce your second volume. There's an echo.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay. Our second mentor for today is Mr. Alexander Olatunde Akolo. Alexander is dedicated professional with demonstrated experience in regulatory compliance, regulation, contract administration and settlement negotiation, research and reported in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. He has recently joined Next Year Power, a subsidiary of Next Year Capital Limited, as a senior energy consultant. Prior to this role, Alexander was a regulatory affair and government regulations manager at Nigeria's largest distribution company, Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company PLC. Alexander has deep knowledge on the plethora of regulations and directives in the NES. He has worked as a technical assistant review of trade and investments and a contract management analyst at the Embassy of Brazil and the Nigerian Bulk Trading PLC respectively. Alexander is about to complete a doctor of philosophy degree in energy studies, renewable energy finance from the University of Ibadan. He holds a MSc Energy Studies degree from the University of Ibadan and a BSc Economics degree from the University of Jos. He has attended several energy conferences within and outside Nigeria. He is the member of the Nigerian Association of Energy Economics, NAEE, Global Association of Rigs Professionals, Society of Petroleum Engineers, and the Energy Institute. Thank you very much. For joining us today, Mr. Alexander Akolo, and also Mr. Abdullahi Haruna. So I'll be reading the last mentor's profile today. Mr. Etunla Adun has an MSc, MNSE, oil and gas industry expert, holds an executive MBA from the Quantic School of Business and Technology, Washington, DC, MSc in Petroleum Technology from Testside, MSc in Petroleum Testside, Bachelor in Engineering, Petroleum Engineering from Bachelor in University, Russia, 10 years of experience, Gulfin University, Russia, of experience and gas production operation, energy industry expert and global energy industry expert and global voice international energy geopolitics, works with major IOCs in Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Etula Adun. So those are our mentors for today. Sorry for the network glitch from my side and the echoing, please. I'll be calling on our mentor, Mr. Etula Adun, to start with his talk on the topic and hear me, please.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Am I clear?
Yes, you are clear, sir.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and my co-mentors and the mentees. I think I've been part of the mentorship program since last year. We had a session on energy industry and fossil fuels. So generally, looked at the importance of how the energy industry, in particular with fossil fuels, is very important in terms of energy supplies and meeting energy demands. And there have been very increasing concerns. Hussein, do you want me to start answering the questions now, or just a preamble that I have to give in terms of the topic so far?
Yes, you just give us an overview and just tell mentees about the topic.
Okay.
So we'll get to the question and answer session.
Yeah.
Later.
So how many minutes do I have now?
You have like 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, great. So in terms of the fossil fuel industry, we need to understand that there is ever been demands since the discovery of oil and gas and coal to meeting up our energy supplies, and global demands have been increasing over the period. there's an outlook I normally look at in terms of sharing by Planet Energies. In 1990, we look at energy by sources. We discovered that from my analysis, that about 10% of biomass and biofuels comes from energy supplies, and then 2% from hydro, nuclear 6%, natural gas 19%, coal 25%, crude oil giving us about 37%. And if we looked at in terms of projection and the growth of population in terms of economic development, we've seen that the projections are like in 2035, we are going to see coal within 25%, and then there's going to be a drop in the demand for oil in terms of the use in energy stream, where you have around 27%. Natural gas is still going activities. And we've looked at situations whereby energy is being used geopolitically to be able to affect countries in terms of their political landscape. So generally, why do we really need energy? I mean, why is energy very important to us? It's because in terms of impacts to society, power generation is very critical aspect of it. So energy is very, very important in terms of providing the growth initiative incentives for incomes to be able to drive our economy. So I'll focus more in the fossil fuel industries. Fossil fuels generally are non-renewable energy sources, which is abundant. We have fossil fuels such as coal, natural gas, crude oil, and they are also depleting in terms of as consumption increases. So this is creating a lot of concerns in terms of greenhouse gas emissions and also environmental impact to our health. In that frame, we'll look at one or two aspects that is very important in terms of energy for fossil fuels, basically crude oil and then natural gas, coal. So if we look at the demand that is going on in terms of Europe, you understand that there has been geopolitical instabilities in Europe because of the natural gas supplies from Russia to mainland Europe. And that has been used as a tool in terms of energy security and interdependence with aspect of European politics. So generally, there are fears that fossil fuels particularly are contributing to air pollution and also increasingly causing a damage to the planet. So this has directly affected our land and waterways. And also we know that fossil fuels are not renewables. And before too long, the peak oil demand and all of that, scientists and analysts are believing that post 2050, we'll be looking into renewable sources of energy much more into net zero scenarios. So you will tend to look at the aspect of why renewable energies is becoming very important in terms of displacing fossil fuels. From my own perspective and experience over the years in the industry, we tend to understand that fossil fuels will not go off the equation in our energy mix within the next 30 to 40, 50 years from now. It's something that is going to be needed as much as possible to be able to drive our economy. And particularly in Nigeria, we are a fossil-based economy, and more into driving petroleum products and all of that. So we are a major producer of crude oil and natural gas, and which we export to various countries in Europe, Asia, and then around the world. So, I mean, in terms of Africa as a whole, and Africa's population is increasing, and the demand for energy is actually increasing also. So with that growth rate, we'll actually need more demand for energy. The International Energy Agency has been calling for a cut in investment into in fossil fuels, particularly with the oil and gas industry. And the major IOCs are also playing the part to see that they decarbonize operations to be able to drive forth the importance of the energy transition in relation to the use of fossil fuel. So if we look at it, Africa generally is rich in renewable sources of energy and also fossil fuels. And that is very important in driving our society today. So energy powers our computers, transportation, communication, and cutting medical equipment, and much more. So developing nations need reliable, affordable energy, which is fundamental to economic growth, and it's important to improving lives and eradicating poverty. So if we look at in terms of the African countries general, fossil fuels and the hydroelectric power are major source of energy in sub-Saharan Africa for the production of electricity. So it's a big challenge to us in terms of energy access in Africa, where major development is very impacted. So recently, there's a suggestion that about 600 million people in Nigeria lack access to electricity, and more than 7 million people cook with traditional biomass. So very importantly, the fossil fuel industry is important currently. We look at use of cooking gas, LPG, to be able to reduce the use of biomass and traditionally in energy mix, which is also important in terms of Africa. If we also look at the renewable energy potentials, which we will talk more in the question section. So it's very important in terms of access. Why is fossil fuel much more better in terms of affordability and reliability? And the major concerns in terms of emissions, where global environmentalists are pushing against it. So for affordability and reliability in terms of energy access, it's a good source for the concerns of emissions. So if you look generally, Europe has been pushing forth for the green agenda. And with what happened in the Ukraine, there has been a push for natural gas, which has become a challenge in terms of the green energy agenda. And that has become a very key part for proponents of fossil fuel, saying that, well, we cannot cut off from fossil fuel use for now. And concerns are in particularly with coal, where the emissions from coal are very high. And the switch to gas from coal power generation is something that has been on for the past decades. And generally, natural gas is becoming a major driver for electricity generation, particularly all over the globe, particularly within the sub-Saharan Africa. Nigeria as a whole has been producing electricity from natural gas. Major IOCs supply natural gas through the gas and transmission network. So this is very important, and fossil fuels remain key in terms of granting access to Africa's population. So I was trying to say that what is the total energy demand in Africa? Electricity demand in Africa is about today around 700 terawatt hours. So with North African economies and South Africa accounting for 70% of the total, yet these other sub-Saharan countries that see the fastest growth. So by 2040, we are going to be seeing major sub-Saharan Africa countries moving faster in terms of the growth in total energy demand. And that will come mostly from natural gas production. And there is a call for increase in solar potential and also renewable energy generation. So particularly in Nigeria, the issues of inconsistencies of electricity power supply, it's a big concern, which companies like NNPC is driving forth for the decade of gas to be able to see how fossil energy will be used, natural gas will be used to be able to power society. So in terms of that competition, we will look at also maybe in the question section, I'll be answering some of the questions in terms of what solar and renewable energy will have to be in that. So it generally Igbin power plant in Nigeria is the largest power generating station, which uses natural gas of an installed capacity of 1,300 megawatts, which consists about 6 units of combined circuit gas turbine generator. So it's very important that we see that fossil fuel it's very key in driving our economy. And the major concerns are that emissions are rising, and one major contributing industry is the fossil fuel industry. And oil and gas companies are really responding in that direction to see that they decarbonize operations to foster economic growth and reduce emissions. So that's just like a recap for me in terms of the overall view for fossil fuel industry. I think we have power experts to be able to, my fellow mentors will be able to talk more in terms of the power generation and also industry. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful overview and explanation on the fossil fuel industry. And I'll be calling on Mr. Abdullahi to also give us his own presentation. We can't hear you, Mr. Abdullahi. I don't know. I can't hear you. I don't know. Can we all hear him?
Not yet.
Okay. Still can't hear you.
So it might be a device issue. Maybe you can log out and log back in.
Okay. While we are waiting for Mr. Abdullahi to get his network or technical issues sorted out, I'll call on the first presenter from the mentees. Presenter one, you can start your presentation now. You have kindly note that you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Presenter one, if you're on the call, please, you can start now. Okay, if presenter one is not ready, you can start with the second presenter. Presenter two, you can start your presentation. You have 10 minutes. Okay, I heard Rita is the first presenter. Rita, I can see Rita is on the call, so. No, sir, we can't hear you.
Please, can you try speaking without the headphone? Maybe it's the earpiece.
Either presenter one or presenter two, please. I'm calling on you from our mentees to start your presentation while you are waiting for Mr. Abdullahi Haruna. Sir, please note, we still can't hear you yet, so. And please, who is Okay, I can see you, Rita. Please kindly unmute yourself and start your presentation. You are muted, please. Okay, group leader for the energy industry group. If you're on the call, please, you can step in for the rest of your group members and start the presentation. We are still waiting for you, please.
Am I audible? Sorry, good morning, it's Rita.
Okay, you are audible.
Okay, the second presenter for my group. So sorry, I'm trying to share my screen.
You can just start your presentation while you are still trying to share your screen.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mr. Mahdi, sorry for cutting in. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, sir.
Yes, we can hear you now, please.
Okay, Mr. Abdullahi, you can go on with the topic. I think the Rita, you can wait while you are trying to learn how to share your screen.
Okay, thank you. Hello, good morning, all.
Good morning, sir.
I'm sorry for all the interruptions. I think it's my device, as someone rightly said. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on the panel. This is my first time, and I really appreciate it. So I just want to give an overview of the power industry. I really enjoyed the previous presenter's presentation, actually, because he kind of like just give a surface of what I'm going to talk about. He explained about the energy usage in Africa and the importance of having available energy. So I'm just going to like narrow it down to Nigeria and give us and the mentees an overview of the power industry in Nigeria. Then when the question and answer session opens, then we can discuss on the way forward, either renewables or not renewables, actually. So please permit me to share my screen. I have a simple slide to just present now. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Okay. So this is just going to be an overview. Please, how many minutes should I use? 5 minutes, 6 minutes?
You have 10 minutes, sir.
Okay, 10 minutes. Thank you for that. So here is going to be an outline. We're going to have the overview challenges, solutions, I put question mark because we're going to discuss actually, then renewables, a way out on it, then we conclude. So as the mentees know, like power generation involves converting the renewables, as the solar, the wind, the biomass, or non-renewables like the natural gas, crude and heavy fuel oil. The power plant uses this energy or extract energy from these primary energy sources and produce electricity, actually. Like in Nigeria, most generators are 16 kV. There is a process followed that converts this primary energy source. Like let's take Ekpin Power PLC as an example. We use water and natural gas, as the previous presenter said. So we boil water, which will turn into steam, which will turn our turbines, and then we generate electricity. The turbine will rotate the generator, which will produce electricity. So this electricity generated is at 16 kV. Then we have to transmit it to a very long distance. Ekpin is located at the remote area of Lagos State, Ikorodu. So we need step-up transformers, which are 330 kV transformers, 16 by 330 kV. So we step it up, as you can see here. We step up to 330 kV, which is going to go over a very long distance, then to the transmission substation, which you decrease it down to 132 kV, then to injection substations, as we call them, to distribution substations, and finally, electricity gets to our home. So this is just roughly an overview of how electricity is generated and transmitted and distributed to our homes. So this is the flow of money from us. Mostly as engineers, sometimes we overlook the monetary aspect of it. We mostly focus on the engineering aspect. So I just feel like it's good for the mentees to know how the revenue flows. Like if you are the user, I don't know if you can see the mouse, you pay for electricity bills, you pay this cost. This cost will settle their agreement with the banks, and then they will pay NBET, which is the Nigerian bulk electricity trader. This NBET is basically like an intermediary between the DISCO and the transco, and the GENCO as well, which are generating plants. They will collect money from DISCOs and distribute it based on the formula that is agreed upon by all the three entities. NBET will settle transcos and GENCOs, and then GENCOs will settle their gas suppliers. So you have, So what are the challenges that we have in the industry from generation to transmission to distribution? Number one, as rightly said, is reliance on natural gas. As we know, in Nigeria, like 87% of our electricity is generated from the thermal power plant, which are mostly natural gas. Before we have the HFO, that's heavy fuel oil, that we use in other power plants, but now mostly we use natural gas. Even though we relied most on it, but most of the times it's inadequate. Sometimes you see the pressure is very low. So like Ekpin Power PLC is 1,320 megawatts, but most of the times we can't even generate up to 1,000. Most of the issues are related to gas. Then there's grid constraints. Because the transmission lines are very old and the infrastructure is weak, so most of the times we cannot evacuate what you generate. So like currently we have installed capacity of more than 10,000 in Nigeria, but we can't evacuate more than 7,500 megawatts. Our transmission lines cannot take more than that. So for transmission, I've already stated their challenges is inadequate or poor infrastructure, then mostly system disturbance. Maybe you lose a line, maybe a transformer tripped out or something like that happens, so which will drag the frequency down or up. So distribution, mostly their problems is like the same thing as the transmission. You have the poor infrastructure, then there are peculiar problems to distribution. We have the energy theft, which like most people partake in. People don't want to use meter. They just want to like use electricity as they wish and then pay as they wish as well. And then we have the metering problem, which the discourse cannot meter everybody now, right now. And other challenges that maybe we might discuss with the mentees. So what are the solutions? As I said, these are some kind of discussions we're supposed to have. For me, I think it's good we diversify our energy generation. We should reduce our reliance on the natural gas, as I stated earlier on. We diversify into solar, hydro, renewables basically, and then we decentralize the grid into regions, because right now we have one national grid which takes care of the whole Nigeria. So if we can have decentralized grids, let's say the north will have its own regional grid, the south, maybe southwest, and each region should have peculiar generation stations. Like in the north, you can talk about solar and hydro because they are abundant in the north, and even wind as well. Then in the south, you can talk about natural gas. Then we can as well encourage embedded power generation. Some countries are doing that. You have an entity which is very big that can generate electricity for itself and then sell to the grid as well, which will reduce the pressure on the generation stations as well. Then the transmission and distribution infrastructure should be improved as well. I know like the federal government is working, that is the Presidential Power Initiative, PPI and Siemens are working on improving the capacity of our transmission to handle 25 gigawatts of energy. So smart metering, this is just a way to like mitigate the energy theft system. And many more that our mentees will discuss with us later on. So in conclusion, I just want to conclude in a way that is very different. And in Africa, what we need is basically we have the technological gap as well, but right now we are not like living up to our potentials. We have potentials that we can do more than what we need. So basically what is hindering our performance in the power sector is basically lack of political will. So any one of us that can have a chance to have an impact should have that political zeal and will to make power affordable and available, which can propel the continent and the country into industrialization. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullahi, for that wonderful overview. And personally, for me, I think it's very clear and it's very informative. I believe all the mentees learned from the presentation. And while Mr. Abdullahi was presenting, our third mentor, Mr. Alexander, joined the call. So I'll be calling on him to also give us an overview on the topic.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I actually missed it. I thought the time was 11:30. Yes, I thought it was 11:30. So yeah, I'm going to share on my video. I just want to switch on the light. So I appreciate. Give me a second. Okay. Yeah, can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I appreciate the speaker, Mr. My glasses, I can't see. Mr. Abdullahi, I saw his presentation. It was very, very well done. But I just have a few comments. Hussein, do you mean comment on the presentation or just a general overview?
Yeah, and a general overview.
Okay, so as the speaker said, The power sector is a very interesting sector. There are lots of challenges in the power sector. There are a lot. And the good thing about the power sector is that everybody uses electricity and everybody can relate. Everybody knows what the power sector is all about. Right from when we were growing up, NEPA, PHCN, and what it is today, broken down and all that. And, recently, I don't know if we heard about it, the president, there was an amendment to the concurrent legislative list, allowing states to make laws on generation, transmission, and distribution in areas covered by the national grid within their state. Before, the states were not allowed to do that, but now they can now make laws. Before, the states were allowed to make only laws in areas not covered by the national grid, but now, anywhere the national grid is, they can make laws. So I will clarify the way the way money works in the system is that we know the value chain is generation, transmission, and distribution. And the generation companies have their gas suppliers. In the discos, they have customers, and the customers are maximum demand customers and non-MD customers. That is residential, commercial, industrial, and special customers, as they used to be classified before. And when they collect the monies at the end of the month, they remit to NBET and TCN. In the TCN, they pay the market operator, that is MO. So what happens is that around the 21st to 27th of every month, the discos get an invoice. I will give an example. Ibadan Disco normally gets an invoice on a monthly basis from NBET of around 9 billion and from the market operator of around 2.5 billion, right? So when Ibadan Disco collects these monies, they pay both the NBET and the market operator. Then NBET now pays the generation companies, who then pays their gas suppliers, right? So this is for, I think it's Abdullahi, the presenter. In his presentation, the flow of the funds, he actually missed it. So NBET does not pay transmission. I hope he has taken note of that. So NBET does not pay the transmission. NBET pays GenCos. So between the NBT and the generation companies, we have what we call a power purchase agreement, an agreement that allows NBET to buy electricity in bulk from the GenCos. And between NBT and the distribution companies, we have what they call a vesting contract, which allows the discos to buy electricity from NBT. So if you look at the Bible of the power sector, which is ESPRA, Electric Power Sector Reform Act 2005, in section 74 to 76 or so, it empowers NEC, which is the regulator, to give out licenses. And they can give out generation licenses, transmission licenses, system operation licenses, distribution licenses, as well as trading licenses. So NBET has a trading license. The GenCos have a generation license, right? System operator, the system operator has a system operations license. So that is how it works. So just for clarity, NBET does not pay the transmission companies. So from the presentation of the presenter, I had the feeling that he's an engineer, because he talked more about technical constraints. So the power sector has a lot of challenges, which can be broken down into regulatory and legal. That is the first one. You can also talk about the technical. You can talk about financial, right? Financial problems. In the value chain, The discos are the ones that have the most problems. Every day, discos have problems, different challenges, and all that. So, what are the methods to give? Okay. Is it time for me to keep quiet? How many more minutes do I have, please? Should I wrap up?
You still have like 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, 3 minutes. Okay. All right, thank you. So there are lots of challenges in the market, and financial challenges are very, very important because the money affects every other thing. Money affects metering, money affects billing, money affects even the manpower, money affects investment. There are also other challenges such as market shortfalls, tariff shortfalls. So market shortfall is the difference between what the discos are invoiced and what discos pay back, right? So in this case, you know that, as I give an example, let's say NBET, the discos are invoiced around 9 billion, and what they can get from the market for that month is 6 billion. So there's a market shortfall of 3 billion. For tariff shortfall, on a yearly basis, the NERC, which is the regulator, is supposed to do an escalation of the tariffs. So at some point, they were not doing it. So that creates, just imagine if you're buying a product at 5 naira, but you are forced to sell at 2 naira. So there was a tariff shortfall. So that was what was happening. And that money has accumulated. That is also a financial constraint. So funding is a very, very important part of the problems of the power sector. So I'll just stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander. And that's the overview from our third mentor for today. So I'll be calling on the mentees to start their presentation now. Rita, I don't know if you are still on the call. You can start. Presenter 1 or presenter 2, you can start your presentation. Okay, group leader for the energy industry group, please, we need your help here to step in for your group members who are supposed to present for this session.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good morning. Our second presenter is not online, so let me just stand in for both of them. So far, we had an overview on the fossil industry and the power industry. Actually, I still have extra questions though. So I want to give the overview based on the fossil industry, based on what we said. So as already said, the fossil industry are non-renewable resources. And then, like, based on research, Nigeria rely more on non-renewable energy. Like, they use non-renewable energy to generate power for electricity and other aspects. But coming on, like, from my own perspective, my own point of view, I feel like the dependence on fossil fuel, like in Nigeria, is more. All right. Okay, the dependence on the fossil fuel industry in Nigeria, is been going on for a very long time. So I don't even feel like Nigeria is going to leave. And then people rely more on crude oil to generate fuel. And I'm not even sure, I don't know, it's based on what I heard. I've not really checked on that. But I don't think Nigeria refines crude oil. that I've heard of. I only know of Dangote that is planning his own refinery, but I don't know if Nigeria generally can refine crude oil for now. And then the fossil fuel has a lot of environmental impact in a disastrous way, because like it affects the environment in general, and then anything that affects the environment, it in turns affects human beings. And most of this fossil fuel, like the process of generating it. Thank you. Sharing the screen. Okay, like I was saying. Okay, fossil affect the fossil because it affect the because I don't know I'm I see me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So the fossil fuel in process of transmitting it and refining or in the process of okay. I don't know. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So, like as I was saying, the process of refining this, like we have coal, we have natural gases. It's in my own opinion, it has more greater advantage, like greenhouse gases, which affect the society in general. That is my own overview. Fossil fuel industry.
All right, thank you very much for stepping in on behalf of your group members that were supposed to present. I understand we are supposed to have 2 presenters for today. I don't know if the presenter 1 is on the call now to also give her presentation.
Yes, I'm here. I don't know if I'm audible.
You are audible.
Okay. Good afternoon. Sorry, good morning. I'll be taking the power industry. Can you all still hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know if my screen is visible. Okay. So regards to the in Africa, Nigeria is okay. In Africa, Nigeria, Africa, yes, energy giant. Sorry, I'm having a little bit. But am I still audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So basically, Nigeria powers for electricity. Nigeria powers for electricity. Like yeah. All right. So, all right. What has to do with renewable energy, which is solar. Nigeria is still an emerging country. Majorly that our major source of energy. Is in Nigeria, the agency that regulates is the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory. Aside from the issue of operate more vast scales of power supply. There are other supply. There are other issues Nigeria as a country face. The issue of poor gas supply, the issue of poor gas supply corruption, we have history. So I'll be taking the case of Nigeria Limited against company. Now, case in distribution company, setting power supply without notice. Now the court held that Schneider Electric in order to pay damages. Against Young Bank Nigerian PLC against Lagos State. In this case, the Lagos State Electricity of Nigeria because of Nigeria electricity bills. The court held that the electricity company had to provide in this case, the Lagos State Electricity Board sued Union Bank for its failure to pay. The court held that the electricity company had a duty to provide electricity bank. However, the bank had the right to terminate the agreement. If the company, that's the electricity company, does not fulfill their obligation. Sorry. Okay. So in concluding, let's talk on fossil fuel industry, and I now the fossil fuel in general is just renewable energy. Is a energy industry in Nigeria, and it is greatly used. Its extraction process produces a lot of gases. Not safe to the environment. Safe to the environment. That is fossil fuel effect on the environment per se is sort of damaging. So power industry. Now, if the power energy is and majorly, I think in Nigeria, if it should adopt the renewable energy process, it could actually the economy. Economy and as well reduce that the environment through the use of that's for the power industry. And that's my presentation. That's it.
Thank you very much, Rita. I believe your network is actually breaking, but we still got the most part of your presentation. Before we move to the question and answer session and also comments from our mentors on your presentation, I would like to encourage everybody to put on their videos. We would like to take screenshot of our session to be posted on our social media platform, and also writing what we've learned from today's session. So thank you very much as you do so. Okay, thank you very much. Please smile for the camera. I've taken some screenshots. Thank you. All right. I don't know. I'll be calling on our mentors to comment on the mentees presentation. I believe the mentors got the presentation even before the session today. So I'll start with Mr. Etula to just give us a brief comment on the presentation from the mentees.
Okay, thanks very much. I think the mentees had some challenges in terms of the network so far, and a good recap on the fossil fuel industry. I'm also very interested in terms of data when discussing issues in terms of the fossil fuel industry. Good presentation and technical issues. Sometimes I needed to see some graph to be able to tell the various shares of the sources of fossil fuel, coal, oil, natural gas, and all of that to be able to understand the energy mix, which is very, very important. It's good to discuss consumption in terms of demand and also the production cycle and future look of how the impact of the fossil fuel. So we would like to see figures in terms of emissions, in terms of...
Sorry, sir, your voice is a bit low.
Okay, sorry. I think maybe my earpiece or so. Right. Okay, Ted, can you hear me? Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
It is.
Okay, great. So like I was saying initially, well done for the presentation from the first and then second presenter, particularly from the guys that presented the fossil fuel. I understand that there have been challenges with the technical realities in terms of the network, so that has affected, but I was able to see through the presentation, nice summary. And what I was trying to point out is that I like in terms of data, when presenting issues, to be able to have very concise and clear picture of what the whole chain of the fossil fuel industry. So as a way of improvement, look at data. You want to talk about the demand and also supply side of how the fossil fuel works and the various coal, in terms of oil, in terms of natural gas, and the mix within the energy mix, the percentages. So we would like to see pictures or kind of graphs or histogram to be able to show easily. And you want to see the impact to the economy. And also, I understand that we're also talking about energy law. It's very important to be able to look at the various regulations that impact on the fossil fuel industries. So these are some of the things that maybe for future can be looking at. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'll call on Mr. Abdullahi to also give his comments.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, the presenters, especially Rita. You got her name because she presented the power aspect of the presentation. So it was a very good presentation, and she did well. What I just want to point out is, number one, she talked about, even though there was technological glitches, but from the slide, I saw that she mentioned Nigeria majorly generates from hydro. So I think we generate mostly from the natural gas, which is thermal stations, as I pointed out in my presentation. Almost 87% of our generation comes from natural gas. Then number two, another paragraph she mentioned that we talk about electricity production and transportation. I actually like the word generation and transmission. I think if you can make it generation and transmission, it should be quite better. And lastly, I think that BMC that describes Nigeria as the energy giant of Africa, I think we still have a long way to go, because if you compare our energy per capita consumption, which is around 144 kilowatts hour, with South Africa's almost 3,500 and Egypt 1,500 kilowatts per capita consumption. So you see, we have quite a long way to go. But in general, it's a very good presentation. What I would just like to also add is, maybe if you're presenting this kind of things, I think it should be easier if you reduce maybe the number of words, make it in bullet points, or just use some pictures. It will be quite easier to follow. But it's a very good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll call on Mr. Alexander to give the final comments before we go on to the question and answer session.
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon once again. I'll just add to what Mr. Abdullahi has said. I will also focus on the power industry, though I really wished I heard most of what the presenters presented. I think it's a responsibility to ensure that their networks are good enough for their presentations. Okay. Actually, I think Engineer Abdullahi has already mentioned my first comment about hydropower being the major use for electricity generation in Nigeria. That statement is actually not correct, as he has pointed out. We have 3 hydros for the grid right now, JIIPCC and JIIPCC, and we have about 21 other generation companies. We have about 21 other generation companies which use gas. So you see that hydro constitutes a very, very minute percentage of our power generation in the country. That is my first comment. Secondly, I'm going to add, where is it? Okay, on the PowerPoint, it's stated that renewable energy in Nigeria is still emerging, and its only source of renewable energy so far is hydropower and biomass. Again, this statement, I expect the presenters to do serious research. What happens to solar? Where is solar? Even in the country today, we know solar is even more advanced than the biomass. So what happens to solar? We have solar projects everywhere, either mini grids or standalone solar projects, or even large-scale solar projects, though most of the large scales have not really taken off, the ones that are for the grid system. But what happens to solar? And so I expect the presenters going forward, if you're making this kind of presentation, do a lot of research. So that statement, biomass especially, is not correct. If you come down, the second paragraph, it says that NERC is a body that regulates the power industry. That is correct. The Nigerian power sector is divided into generation and transmission, which entails the production or transportation of electricity. You've taken care of only two aspects of the value chain. Where is distribution? Distribution is very, very important. Distribution is what makes the power enter into your house. Remember Engineer Abdullah's presentation when he talked about from the generation company, step-up transformer, injection substations, and all that, right? The end of the value chain there is the customer, and from the distribution side is, I mean, you know, power cannot be stored. That's the first thing they will tell you in, I think, in maybe engineering or physics or something. So it has to be used. You're not generating the power to drink, or you're not just generating the power. It costs money. It costs millions of dollars. So it has to be used. It's a financial commodity. So distribution is a very, very important part of the value chain. You cannot take it away. Without distribution, the power is useless. You understand? So again, I know this is a learning process, but if you're going to do something, do it well. Yeah, so these are my major comments that I found from the slides that were sent earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander, and also Mr. Etunla and Mr. Abdullah Shuaibu for the comments and the corrections. I believe our mentees have taken notes and will do better on their next research and also presentation. So moving on to the question and answer session, I will ask the question. So I will call on the mentors to all contribute on the answers. So the first question is the issue of whether or not solar constitutes an example of fossil fuel. So that's the first question. Mr. Etunla Adu can go first.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, I think it's quite clear in terms of when I was talking about the presentation for fossil fuels. I told you about the fossil fuels are non-renewable. So examples for like oil and gas and all of that. So for solar itself, solar is not a fossil fuel and is a renewable energy source. So for instance, we will not really run out of sunshine to power our houses, automobiles, or the sun just exists. So compared to what fossil fuel is, fossil fuels are non-renewable. Other than that, so we expect that in just simple answer to that is that solar power does not, it doesn't constitute an example of a fossil fuel. It's more or less a renewable energy source. So the sun provides more than enough energy to meet the whole world's energy needs. Some research has found that unlike fossil fuels, it won't run out of time anytime soon. So as a renewable energy source, the only limitation for solar power is our ability to turn it into electricity, which is a efficient and a cost-effective way. So for me to say much more in terms of looking at comparing it with fossil fuel, looking so much to say that solar energy is most efficient in terms of environmental impact. So simply, and does not, in my own perspective, from my research, it does not constitute an example of fossil fuel. It's a renewable energy source, and renewables exist and means that we can be able to use them. And then for non-renewables, we have what we talk about the fossil fuel. So you talk something like coal and natural gas, which are more efficient and reliable in terms of affordability for now. So we are scaling up solar energy, and like Alexander had said before, in terms of the use in Nigeria, we're seeing the global demand and the cost for solar is decreasing compared to how it started before for solar panels, and solar is increasing rapidly. So also the improvement in efficiency of solar is also improving. So if we compare that in terms of fossil fuels, in terms of renewables, particularly with solar, in a matter of efficiency, solar panels have a efficiency between 15 to 20%, while if we want to look at generally for, while we also tend to lean to fossil fuels much more, particularly like coal, for example, you have an efficiency in terms of 40%, while natural gas gets to like 60%. So when you want to make conversion from fossil fuels, coal lost a lot of heat in terms of generation. So we are looking at growing solar demand in Nigeria and also sub-Saharan Africa. From what I see so far, I was just actually carrying out some background checks in terms of while solar is good in relation to the net zero efforts to decarbonize our societies, that solar is much more environmentally friendly than fossil fuel. It offsets electricity costs and protects against rising utility prices. So we look, for example, in Nigeria, that a lot of middle-class people are having solar panels installed with inverters in their homes to be able to curb and mitigate the issues with epileptic power supplies. So these are some benefits that we take in terms of solar energy, where you have a low-cost maintenance, provides energy independence. We have diverse applications, and also it's increased home value in Europe and other developed worlds. Individuals from their own solar generation at home, also excess power is being supplied to the national grid or to utility companies. So it's also creates additional incomes. So these are some aspects that we look at in terms of solar. And we know that solar comes from the sun, and the solar energy is abundant as a renewable energy source. So a bit some talk about in Nigeria specifically, recent study that showed that concentrated solar power plant in Nigeria can generate more than 427,000 megawatts. So the present levels of power generation is around 5,000 megawatts. So which is just a fraction of what solar potential in Nigeria can do. We have a huge solar potential to be able to form in terms of utilization for agriculture and other aspects that will enhance our economy. So, and these are one of the things I could say to add up in terms of solar not being a fossil fuel as an example. So what's the potential for the global solar industry? You look at generally, I think I made a research, it talks about the global solar energy system market size was estimated to be around $160.3 billion in 2021 and expected to grow much more. In 2022, it got to around $190 billion. So Africa has a huge potential for solar resources. And then we just have about, according to the international agency, Africa has 60% of the world's best solar resources, but only 1% of solar generation capacity. So to achieve its energy and climate goals, Africa needs around $190 billion of investment per year between 2026 to 2030, which is 2/3 of this going to clean energy. So these are issues that we need to look at. And then young leaders of what we have of the mentees, this is something that a lot of leaders are getting involved in, seeing how we can be able to foster growth in terms of renewable energy. And the oil and gas industry is also interested about this. So lastly, for now, Nigeria is still not the best. In 2021, South Africa had the largest solar energy capacity in Africa. So reaching over 6 gigawatts. So in terms of we claiming energy giant, I don't think we are. And We have South Africa, though ESCOM is having some challenges in terms of the power generation industry in South Africa for now. So these are some of the things I'm just going to talk about in terms of why we want to look at that first question, whether solar is an example of fossil fuel. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah. I will call on Mr. Alexander to also comment on that question.
Okay. Interesting. When I saw that question, I actually laughed. So, as Mr. I think Engineer Tulana said, solar is not a fossil fuel. When you look at a fossil fuel, what does a fossil fuel mean? It means it contains hydrocarbons. That means it is composed of matter, especially maybe have been buried under the ground for decades or thousands of years. So fossil fuels are more, they are not renewable. They are exhaustive. When you put fuel and it finishes, it does not automatically replenish itself. So in this case, simply put, fossil fuels are more of hydrocarbons, which are petroleum, natural gas, and natural gas are either associated natural gas or non-associated natural gas. When you are exploring for oil, right, in the oil wells, there might be gas, and that is associated gas. As you say, the gas is associated with the oil, with the petroleum you're exploring for. But there are also gas wells that are not associated with petroleum. And you have lots of them in Nigeria, Anambra State, and the Niger Deltas and the rest, right? So this is a clear distinction. So for renewable energy, you're talking more about solar, you're talking about biomass, you're talking about, there's this new technology, tidal energy, yeah? An example of fossil fuel also is coal. It's coal. So these are the clear distinctions of the two sources of energy. I hope I'll be able to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander and also Mr. Ketula. I'll call on the mentees to ask any live question they have. In case you have any live question, please kindly raise your hand while I call on you to ask your question. And I can also see some new question from a mentee on the chat box. But I'll be taking the second question for Mr. Abdullahi Haruna. Okay, it's based on research. Fossil fuel have negative impact on climate change. It is only the government. Okay, is it only the government that has the responsibility of providing renewable energy? What about companies like Shell and NMPC? Can't they be conferred with the duty of providing renewable energy? That's the question. I hope you get that question, Mr. Abdullahi.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. The responsibility of providing renewable energy doesn't lie with the government alone. It lies with so many stakeholders, I say, including companies that they mentioned there. So government is mostly saddled with the responsibility of setting policies and regulations, maybe incentivize the process and forming frameworks for investors to come and invest in renewable energy sources. So you see, we can't say it's government's responsibility alone. And then for these companies, mostly what companies do is that when government provides these policies and regulations, they just use their resources to develop mostly new technologies and invest their money into developing new technologies, as I said, which will enable them to. Okay, yeah, sorry, let me start the video. I forgot. Okay, can you hear me? Can you see me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as I was saying, mostly companies, they are developing new technologies and investing in these technologies to ensure that they, as part of their CSR, that is their corporate social responsibilities. I don't know much about NNPC and Shell, but for Green Power PLC, where am I now? I know there are certain technologies that they have invented. They call them green, mostly they are green techs, they have scooters, they have so many initiatives like that involves investing into renewable energies. And then mostly in this power plant and other power plants, they try to achieve net zero carbon emissions by planting trees and sustaining trees, and then encouraging their employees to go green as well. So the responsibilities of providing renewable energy doesn't lie with the government alone. There's so many stakeholders involved. Even though it's a complex process, but so many stakeholders are involved in providing renewable energy. Thank you. I think Mr. Alexander or Etulan Adu will add something on that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, also, Haruna. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullahi. Okay, Mr. Etula is going to comment, and also Mr. Alexander. Okay. Mr. Etula, you can go first.
Okay, thank you. And just to add to what Mr. Haruna has said, generally, because of the mantra for the energy transition, the international push for ESG, environmental and social and governance aspect of the business. Arena mentioned CSR, corporate social responsibilities, and oil companies generally are mandated to be able to see that they meet demands for society. So, I mean, big oil, we call big oil. We have ExxonMobil, British Petroleum, Shell, and all of that have been involved in seeing that the climate change agreements are being met. So renewables aspect of it is not saddled with only for the responsibility of government alone. Just like as I'm involved in the oil and gas industry, Shell generally is involved in terms of investing into renewable energy. I think sometime in 2021, there's this information that all on Shell bought I think it spent around $21 million in Nigeria for all on is a renewable energy company. So acquisition, what the big oil guys are doing now is that they also acquiring some new technologies from companies for oil and gas. You would have heard of Ørsted, is a big former oil company, now much more into renewables. Equinor, the Norwegian oil and gas company. So like in Nigeria, generally, Shell and other IOCs are involved in also carrying out programs that will improve renewables, and also it's a rebranding strategy to be able to look very good in terms of environmental. So we also have what is called now integrated energy companies. Generally, you start hearing Total Energies, you start hearing Shell Energies, and all of the kind of names that have been changing. So what happens is that integrated energy players are looking to retain their portfolio profitability, so to look green in terms of investing into low carbon markets. So what they're doing is that they're getting involved in renewable power, bioenergy, next generation mobility, so electric vehicles mobility. In the UK precisely, you'll see, and in Europe, Shell is actually involved in electric charging stations, one of the big networks in electric mobility. So we have this electric vehicle charging points. They're also involved into hydrogen, green hydrogen projects. So these are areas that oil and gas companies are investing huge amount of money, and it's also part of shareholder value that they need to invest within their budget now that accords some billions of dollars to renewables. So you'll start seeing new reports about involvement in renewables. So for Shell, for instance, let's say I got some information about that. In Shell Energy Retail, we have energy that comes from wind, solar, biomass, and also using electricity supply to the natural grid. So a lot of investment that are going on. So oil companies also are trying to use technologies in terms of solar power and offshore wind to be able to power production assets. That, for example, in Norway and in the North Sea, a lot of oil and gas fields are now using offshore wind power to be able to power the production facilities, unlike using natural gas. So it reduces emissions. Then in terms of corporate social responsibility, that have been involved in that. So in general, about 1.5% of Shell's total expenditure in 2021 was invested in wind and solar electricity projects. So this is in line with the EU taxonomy for sustainable activities. So these are some of the things that are going to be up. I was looking at what NNPC is proposing in terms of how their portfolio. So we have NNPC sustainability right now, which they are looking at in terms of investing into renewables in Nigeria. But I've not seen major projects so far, and that has been done by the NNPC group currently. So that's one or two things I can add up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Itula. Mr. Alexander, can you give the final comment now?
Okay. Thank you. I had to read the comments again, and one thing that struck out to me was the part that says, what about companies like Shell and NNPC? Can't they be conferred with the duty of providing renewable energy? They cannot be forced. They can only do it by choice. So my co-mentors they've actually basically summarized most of it, and their contributions are on point. If you look at, I mean, there has been different, I know last year we were hearing a lot about COP27. This year there'll be COP28. There's the Kyoto Protocol, the Paris Agreement. So the whole world is moving towards a more climate-friendly environment, and commitments have been made. You cannot force anybody. So yes, the government has the responsibility of providing an enabling environment, making policies, right, funding and the rest. But oil companies, IOCs and LOCs, local oil companies, cannot be forced, but they are moving along with the tide. They too can see that, because even now, the last presenter mentioned ESG. There are ratings to these things, right? So for your company to be seen as being environmentally friendly, you have to also move along with the tide. If you check many fuel stations today, many of them even have solar panels. I think NNPC did that for all their filling stations across the country. I think Total the same. Total is no more Total, it's now Total Energies. They had to move along with the tide as well. So yes, they cannot be conferred with the duty. They can just do it as an additional responsibility, something they want to do for the betterment of mankind and the environment. I'll just stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander. Sorry, I was muted and talking. So I said you'll be taking the next question, Mr. Alexander. So, and it's actually from a mentee and is on the chat box. It says some do hold that the concept of renewable energy is a calculated effort to trip down the economy of the developing nations, especially for the oil producing states, which in turn dampens the acceptability and applicability of renewables. How true is this position?
Chidera, you want to put me in trouble? So your question, how true is this position? I don't know how true it is, but personally, as Alex, right? Personally, for me, how do I put this that it's not being misconstrued? For Alex, this is my own personal opinion. I even brought this up during an energy law class at the University of Ibadan. I feel Africa is really blessed, right? We have lithium, solar, we have lots of resources. Let's use Nigeria as a case study. Nigeria has oil. We have the second largest reserve, I think, in the world or so. In Africa, then the ninth or seventh in the world. I think, in my own personal opinion, and I'm saying this, thank God it is recorded. I've said it is my own personal opinion. I think countries should be allowed to make use of the resources they have for their economies. After all, we don't pollute as much as the global north. We don't have enough manufacturing companies or whatnot to pollute the environment as much as the global north. And it's the same global north that is dictating to the global south not to use the resources they have. So as out whether it's true or not, I don't know, but this is just my own personal opinion. I don't know if it's a calculated effort because I'm not privy. I'm a researcher and I can't say what I don't have evidence on. So I've not seen any document to say yes, or I've not seen any recording to say yes, they had a meeting and they said, no, yes, we must suppress African countries by pushing renewable on them. So I can't say if it's true, but in my own opinion, I just feel countries should be allowed to use whatever resources they have for self-actualization. You understand? The more we import renewable energy, because African countries do not even produce renewable energies. The technology, RETs, we don't produce them. And we buy them, we import them from the developed countries, improving their own economies. And for some of these things, there is no manpower to even make to operate some of these technologies, like wind now. I'm not even sure. There's no wind. Oh, okay. I think there might be one or two wind turbines in Nigeria, but there is no technology for that. My company was trying to look for a wind expert. We couldn't get anyone in Nigeria. So, Chidera, I'll just stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll call on Mr. Etula to maybe give a contribution to that question.
Well, I think Mr. Alexander had said a lot about it. Well, for my own perspective, in terms of, I know I get a lot involved in global geopolitics, and there's the arguments from, if you look at the energy chamber, you've heard of Mr. Ayuk, and we've been pushing for what is called the just transition. you hear that just transition, just transition. So oil producing countries are saying, from the developing world, are saying that yes, we have these resources, they are good for our economic development. We've not even utilized it to our maximum capacity, while the developed countries have been using this for a while and they're transitioning to renewables. We can't just force us to get into renewables. So we want to, sorry. Okay, sorry for the video. So developing nations are right from OPEC and gas producing countries, organizations such are pushing for a just transition, saying that yes, we want to move into renewables based on the climate agreement, but we'll harness our resources, our fossil resources, to be able to help our economic development. So I can't say it's a calculated effort. The global north is doing the thing, and so Africa should be able to have the responsibility to understand that yes, this and infrastructure-wise, we don't have it, and we can't move that swift way. So for me, it's not, I can't say it's calculated. I can't be able to put forward to say it's calculated by the global north. But developing countries have the responsibility to have a fair hearing in terms of the energy transition. The move to renewables should not be forced on us, and the transition to it should be just. The clamor is that we will use natural gas, which is favorable, and in terms of carbon emissions is lower than oil, to be able to power our economy. This has been said by the likes of the Vice President of Nigeria in meetings and globally, and also other African leaders are pushing forth for this. If you look at examples of Saudi Arabia, oil producing countries, there have been parallel shifts in terms of investment into renewables. So whilst we're harnessing our fossil resources, the finance and income that comes with it can be invested concurrently in renewables to boost our economy. So there is no calculated effort. Nobody is holding our neck. We have a right to say what we want. The only thing is that in terms of geopolitics, there are going to be consequences if you don't abide by the global north. Which our political leaders should stand by what we believe. And if we can have leaders that can be able to harness our resources for economic growth and try to prove to the global north that yes, we can reduce our carbon emissions. Take for instance, Norway, generally in Europe, after the issue that comes up with Russia, Norway became the major gas supplier to the European Union. And for goodness sake, they are in the global north. And nobody's forcing. So what Norway has to imbibe they are doing is that most of the electricity generation in Norway, in terms of power generation, is from hydro. And they are major oil and gas producer exporting to nations, but in terms of carbon footprint, they have reduced it. So that caused a belief for them to say, yes, we can actually rely on Europe is actually relying on Norway for now. So imagine Nigeria is in that position. I mean, nobody's going to be telling you that you are producing an oil that has a lot of high carbon. So it becomes a concurrent approach. And this is my position.
Thank you very much, Mr. Etula. I'll be taking the last question on the chat box for Mr. Abdullahi. So the applicability of most forms of renewable energy, if not all, requires technical equipment. This factor, amongst others, inhibits the utilization of renewables, especially for the developing nations. What are the functional ways of arresting these challenges?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mahdi. On the previous question, I would just like to add some few things. As co-mentors have said, especially Etula and Adi, African countries, I think especially our leaders, we need to become more responsible, or like we should try to own our resources for ourselves. Like, we know Africa's potential right now is the fossil fuel. So, and what draws my attention to add something is that I remember during the Russian crisis, Germany was bringing back their some of their old coal power plants. So, which can tell you that, you see, like, if if they can bring it back with all the clamoring of renewable energies, but they were able to bring back some of them. And Europe is also trying to seek alternatives to get natural gas because of the Russian, Ukraine, or even from Africa, they're exploring those opportunities. So we need to like stand to our toes, which there are so many things involved that maybe African countries cannot do that, but we need to gear up and do that actually. For the second question, she asked about technology. As Mr. Alex has said, most of this equipment, we import them. So they are not being manufactured in Nigeria or Africa. So we can say we should try to improve our technological acumen, but it's going to be, anyway, we should try to improve that. But for me, my stand is mostly to, let's just try to work on the resources that we have and leave their equipment for them. Let's just try to see how we can harness our fossil fuels and generate electricity that is going to be available, which will boost our economy, which will lead us to industrialization. When we reach that stage of fully industrialized as they are, then we can start thinking of other things that are superficial. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll call on Mr. Alexander to give a final comment on that second question.
Okay. I'm reading it again.
Okay.
These factors. Okay, so what I'm able to get from this question is that the poster of this question is okay. Yes, renewable energy requires technologies, all of them, lots of technologies, right? And these technologies are not produced. Let me use Nigeria. I like using Nigeria as a case study because it's an environment that we most likely are all in. So yes, we import most of these things, but one of the things that I see, I remember when I went for a capacity test at even the three hydros, Jeba, Kanji, and Shiroro, and they were telling me that sometimes, I'm sure Abdullah, you can relate to this, when your turbine, one of your turbines spoils, so happens, I don't know if them Abdullah in Egbin have, no, there are engineers, there are lots of engineers for that, but well, for hydros, you have to dive in thousands of feet to be able to fix some of these turbines. The expertise is not cheap. The expertise is not available. Oftentimes, you have to bring people from Germany, you have to bring people from France, you have to bring people from China, as in you bring them into the country to fix some of this equipment. He knows what I'm saying. So the thing is, even the Siemens deal, one of the presenters made one of those, talked about the Siemens deal and PPI, Presidential Power Initiative. Those transformers, those equipment, all of them will be brought in from Germany. That was the deal that was signed. All our transformers in the distribution networks or the transmission networks. Oh, Abdullah, please, your power plants, most of your generators, where are they from? Which country? Can you just answer just briefly?
It's from Hitachi, Japan.
Hitachi, Japan. Good,
Yeah.
good. You have said Japan now, and you are bringing equipment from Germany. How are they going to marry? So these are some of the challenges of the Nigerian power sector. So applying to renewable energy is pretty novel in Nigeria. So we don't even have, apart from solar, where we have lots of expertise, but for most of the rest, no. We have to import manpower as well. So the way, back to your question, what are the ways of arresting these challenges? Some of the ways, just like Engineer Abdullah has said, are using indigenous methods that are that we are used to, that Africa is used to, Nigeria is used to. Also, we should invest in the acquisition of skilled manpower. That is very important. Send people to some of these countries. Most of the generation companies send their engineers to some of these countries in the global north to go and understudy them, to go and do some kind of technology exchange programs. So we come back. But the thing is that our guys are so good, by the time they come back, they're hijacked. So we do not have enough manpower for the use and utilization of renewable energy technologies in the country. Also, if we can invest, I know Naseni was recently commissioned, just recently, for something, maybe, but I know Naseni is an assembling plant. They usually do assembling of solar equipment and components. I don't know if Naseni, when I saw the news, I was not so sure. I didn't have the time to delve into if they started manufacturing solar cells and solar panels. So if, and you know the funny thing, Nigeria has all the resources for most of these things. If I understand, I'm not an engineer, but I think some of these solar equipments are made from sand. No, not the equipment, rather the solar panels. Silicon, yes, they're made from silicon. We have them. We go to the north, there's sand everywhere. There's silicon, there's the kind. So what will it cost us to be able to make some of these renewable energy technologies in our country? I hope I've been able to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander.
Mr. Badi, sorry, let me just say something to add to what Alex has just saying. I think this is very serious, the lack of technological expertise. Recently, we did an overhaul. Well, let me say they did an overhaul because they were expatriates, as Mr. Alex has said. ST3, that's unit 3. You know, Egbin is 6 units generators. You have, each unit is 220 megawatts. So each unit has its own turbine and generator. So the turbine, they worked on the turbine. They had to like carry these guys from Japan, and some of them were from South Korea. Almost about hundreds, or more than hundreds, to come and work on that particular generator. And after they're finished, they will take them back to their country. So this is like, if you calculate the cost, like it's just too much. But because there's no technology in Nigeria that can do that. There was a time that I think they had to even ship a blade of the turbine to one of these countries for repairs. That they took it back to their lab there. So the technological constraint is there. So we just have to work on improving these kind of things for us to develop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullahi, Mr. Alexander, and Mr. Etula. I think we've come to the end of the program for today. I will call on my co-moderator, Amina Adam, to give a closing remark before we end this session for today.
Thank you, Hussein. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Okay. This is to say a special thank you to our mentors. I know today is Saturday, and I'm sure you have other things to do. Your weekdays are usually very busy, but you took the time to give us such an interesting session, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of us that we enjoyed this session. It was really interesting and interactive. We learned a lot of things. And just like Mr. Alexander said, this is an industry that concerns everybody, whether you like it or not. We use power and energy every day. And looking at the situation in Nigeria, everybody would love the situation to be better. And especially looking at the potentials in Africa and Nigeria too in particular. So listening to you, all three mentors, we know we see that there might be light at the end of the tunnel. Gives us hope that someday things will get better. Thank you so much. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. Over to you, Hussein.
Okay, thank you very much, Amina, for that wonderful remark. And I'll just give a quick encouragement to our mentees on the call. Please try and do better when next I call on you to do your presentation. Please make it fast. I believe we wasted a lot of time today trying to get to see how our presenters will come on board. And finally, the group leader had to step in. So please try and see how you can get a good network before the mentorship, the next mentorship sessions. And if you are a presenter, kindly prepare before time. So thank you very much once more, everybody. Thank you very much to all our mentors. And we also say a very big thank you to the convener of this program, Ms. Juliana Imam. And have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and bye-bye.
All right, bye. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Engineer Abdullahi, Engineer Tulan.
Hi, thanks, guys.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please, can I get your contacts through Juliana? Can I reach out to Juliana to send me your contacts? I would like to.
I think on LinkedIn, you can actually just get us.
Oh, great. Oh, perfect then.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay. Okay.
Just
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Okay,
Right.
sorry. Let me just say something.
Okay, we are
Okay,
listening.
go ahead.
Yes, after the sessions, we usually tag the mentors. So I'm sure from our post, you'll be able to see the other mentors, co-mentors.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay, thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you for your time and efforts.
Thank you.